Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Original D-Rose, Matthew, Arwin, Arthur, and a couple of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good morning, good evening.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. As you may have picked up on, as I had a couple of live streams off my iPad this morning, I had some terrible computer woes, which are kind of self-inflicted. I had some errors throwing up from some piece of software that I don't ever use called AI Suite. And after speaking to my tech guy, he specifically said, delete it and reinstall it. So I deleted it and the computer asked me to restart, which I did. And then I was like, oh, it's all working. I don't think I'll bother reinstalling it. It's a pain in the ass. So I carried on using the computer for the evening, went to bed, came back after, and it had all broken. I'm like, ended up taking it down to the shop this morning. No fun at all. But yeah, my tech guy spent an hour and a half figuring out what was wrong with it, reinstalling all the drivers that AI Suite had removed, all of the chipset drivers, the USB drivers, the graphics card drivers, even the VGA drivers for the graphics card inside the CPU had all been removed upon removing AI Suite. So I was like, oh, great. So after manually reinstalling all of them, including the network drivers, because I couldn't do that here. I had no network driver either, so I couldn't get online. He had to fathom that by doing it on a different computer, onto a USB stick, onto my computer, to get it online, start downloading manually all the other crap. And now I've got it finally back home. I'm back at square one. I've reinstalled AI Suite, which will probably give me the same bloody error it gave me in the first place that led me to deleting it. But I figured out after the fact, although I didn't realise it fundamentally controls some of the voltages in the computer. So there we go, deleting it definitely a good idea. And while it was back up and running and without that software, it was still crashing. So I've had two attempts so far to get this live stream running. Now, the reason I preambled all of what we're about to go through on live stream is because if this does happen to still crash under its own weight, then it will. If not, it'll be a completely uneventful show and we'll just do some housekeeping and have a little chit chat. So there you go. There's my explanation for why we're a couple of hours late. If you're tuning in live and you're wondering why is this so much later than usual, PC issues. What else would it be? Anyway, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth.
It only exists in the math, which is based off a flat plane.
Hooray, it's working! Okay, you taking Eleanor swimming? I've got to discuss things with my wife, although I've got a live audience. It's at a later time, so you'll have to excuse me. Very unprofessional. You're taking Eleanor swimming? I'll have to watch Clover. That's how it's going to be. We're 2 hours late. Okay, yes. Only exists in the maths. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Like the ground moving?
Yeah, that doesn't even exist in the math. It just doesn't exist at all.
Well, it's an interesting one now that
you don't need it.
Well, they're deriving this
spinning, and then there isn't any.
Let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
It's been interesting since refracted curvature has pointed out that in order to reify this notion of orbital mechanics, you first need to derive an axis that would be based on the radius from a flat plane. Now, there's a couple of different ways that they can do it, i.e. Al-Biruni with his dip measurement after acquiring the height of a mountain off a flat plane. Alternatively, you've got the minimum elevation angle measurement to Polaris. But in both instances, you need a flat plane. In other words, orbital mechanics is based on the celestial sphere over a flat plane. So that derivation of this, now reified into existence, falling around rocks, starts off life with a flat Earth measurement. So it's hard to sort of wrap your head around the idea of reifying this mathematical concept that's come from a flat plane into actually being something that's real once you know how Copernicus and Kepler and, you know, heliocentric priests did it and what they had to do it with. That would be a flat plane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were the original flat earthers. They had, yeah, you have to be a flat earther to create the ball. Otherwise, you don't know what you're doing.
We've got nothing to base it on. If you don't understand that you're going to be taking measurements to the stars off a plane, if you don't appreciate that, then what are you measuring? What are you deriving your sphere from? Well, we already just went through that. You're deriving it from a flat plane to get your radial value, either by radial derivation with trig and assumptions of curving away baselines that were previously used to get heights of mountains, that's Al-Biruni, or minimum elevation angle measurement off a flat plane to Polaris, that's the equator. Well, either of those can be used to derive an R value, but you're deriving them from a flat plane. So what's the next step? Well, if we take that plane and make the R value that we just measured as a minimum elevation to Polaris the outside edge of a sphere, and then wrap the motion of the stars around it and it around the stationary static sun, aka we make it heliocentric, then we've got a better way of predicting these, what would they call them at the time, epicycles. You know, we can give them a different name. We can call it retrograde motion, and, you know, that's a better way of predicting where these stars and planets and all the rest of it are going to align, so we know when Easter's going to be. But they had to take it to quite an extreme conceptual place in order to do that. Heliocentrism is fairly extreme in how conceptual it is, which does kind of beg the question, how is it that we've all been duped into this? Oh, of course, by having it constantly put in our faces, constantly reiterated and affirmed to us from birth. That's how.
Right, because originally it was just a basic trick. Like, oh, just think of the other side, like the celestials, like being in this way, surrounding us, instead of like, oh, look at it as it's happening over us. We don't know what that is, but we got these angles and a flat plane. And then you look at it like, oh, but what if it's like a sphere that's surrounding another sphere? And then, yeah, just like this dichotomy happens, or this, what do you call it, sort of cognitive dissonance effect, like watching at a 3D picture and it just snaps. You suddenly see the 3D picture because you look slightly cross-eyed. Well, that sort of happens with that same effect of the trick that comes out of, well, creating all that. And that trick has been massively expanded upon and like used as a foundation for an entire storytelling tradition of physical reification. And that's what we got. That's the globe.
Saying farewell to my wife who's off swimming. Yeah, as I say, it's gone from being possibly my least favourite subject, that would be axial rotation, because you end up in the wrangle-dangle for such a prolonged period of time, to being just another one of those arguments you can immediately get in your Lamborghini and refer to a flat plane. Like, how did you get the R value to claim that we're radial-based, sphere-shaped, moving around the sun? To have that as a description of an orbital motion, how'd you get your R? Now, if they don't know, then you can tell them how it came from a flat plane. But at that point, where does the argument go from there? What are they going to do? Deny Al-Biruni's methodology? At that point,
Well,
your opponent has to... We haven't had this yet. We haven't actually put these up. I haven't personally put these... You're going to need a flat plane argument to anybody from the globe side as yet. Nobody's come forth to challenge or for us to have the opportunity to just put that to them. But when they do have that put to them, what are they going to do? Other than accept that, yeah, my globe measurement does definitely come from a flat plane measurement initially, but still we're in orbit. What are they going to do then?
Well, they just like scrub it down to a skeletal understanding and just see it as a geometric concept. It's like, no, it's not physical reality, actually. So they will then probably, I predict they will basically recognize that it's only math in order to get away from that problem, right? In that certain moment, instead of reifying the math into reality, they will suddenly recognize, no, it's only math then.
But then it's not reality. I mean, you're suggesting that they would recognise the nature of Earth is flat upon having this argument put to them, which I think is a...
No, that's not what I mean. They would
That is what you
say that that argument that it's based off a flat plane is only like mathematical because of and geometric and all that. It's not actually real. That's what I'm predicting.
Saying, I see what you're saying. You're saying, oh, that's just the way it works in the maths. Yeah, that's just like saying, well, that's just words and how we describe stuff. Yeah, that's correct. That's how it works in the math. Yeah. What is it Red Rhetoric used to say? Math is reality. Well, your math is of a flat plane. It's not. It's completely conceptual. It's abstract. It's a language. But aside from that, their abstract language to describe a globe takes the measurements in physical reality from a flat plane.
Right. But the point is that they will always love to say that math is reality and try to argue that. And then when you tell them, hey, but it's the math actually is based off a flat plane, then they will probably say, yeah, but it's only math, it's not actually real. That's what I'm saying that they will do.
What, you mean they'll deny the flat earth bit as being not real?
Yes, as soon as you say flat plane, then they'll say it's only math. And then as soon as you get back to the globe, yeah, that's the real thing. That's the real math.
But it isn't, because it's all calculations based on that original measurement of the radial value. If you're going to put Earth on an axis, you've got to get the axis from somewhere, haven't you? To do the maths, to say it's a sphere, to then say, oh, it's only the maths for the full flat Earth, that's not real. That's no good. I know you're clutching at straws, so I've only just put this to you, Arwin, but I've thought about this. What are they going to do? It is incredibly quiet at the moment, and the censorship level seems to have gone up. Now, don't get me wrong,
doublespeak? That's what I'm saying. It's like they've done that before. They thought they've gotten away with it. It's been ignored by most except us. So they win. So they're just doing it again. It's like, oh, just more doublespeak then. Okay. It's not that big a deal for them anymore, Nathan.
I think they would just say,
Go on, sorry.
I think they would just deny, nuh-uh. They would say, nuh-uh. They can't accept that. That could never come out of their mouths. Because you're talking about a worldview, a religious system, and you're threatening it when you point out the fact that the radial value is, you're assuming the Earth to be flat to get these angle measurements. So anytime they want to talk about 90 degrees they'll just deny it flat out. They won't entertain it.
What's to deny?
Right. They'll twist around the whole reality, create a bog.
I understand what you're both saying, right? You're saying that somehow they'll be able to create a cognitive blanket between us and this argument, or them and this argument. Now, I understand what you're saying because you're going by past experience. But I'm suggesting to you that that can't be. If you are talking about where something has originated, and you're talking about how it originated in physics, in physical reality, and then you show that in physical reality, the physical measurement is flat, for you to take that physical measurement and turn it into a radius, how can you, if you're in that wrangle-dangle, you can't possibly ignore the origins of the radius when they're laid down in their own rhetoric. They can't deny them.
Yeah, they can.
How? You've given me nutter, and they'll say it's just in the maths for the flat.
Do it. Doesn't have to make any sense. As long as you could just move on after that.
Well, I want to see what happens.
Like nothing ever happened.
Like I say, I want to see what will happen, because up until now, I have shied away from arguing Coriolis. And if I'm forced into a corner where we're having to talk about it, we're responding to a video about it, or there's a anti-flat earther / globe believer on the Discord server arguing about it, then I'm forced into a position to have a discussion about my least favourite subject. That's Coriolis deflection, because of all the convolution that can be employed by a globe believer or anti-flat earther to obfuscate away from the fact we don't see deflection. That can take a long time. But pointing out that the radial value is required in the first instance, and then asking them if they know where it has come from. And if they don't, they're like, well, you're the one making this claim about your radial value and the axis that it's got to turn the Earth to move us around the sun in your heliocentric model. If you don't know the origins, I'll tell you. But at that point, this is what I'm saying, Arwin. You've got somebody who is obviously of a reasonable faculty of mind to understand how heliocentric methodology in the maths works. They just don't know the origin because it's been shielded from them, hasn't it? We've only just found out. I've been here 8 years.
Yeah, but hold on, no, but they also, you don't understand, it's not been shielded from them. They've been taught how to shield it from themselves. That's where they're at.
Don't really follow. How have I been taught when I was a heliocentrist to shield the necessity for a flat plane to measure angles, to employ them in a spherical based sky model over a flat plane, to then superimpose the radial value derived by either Alberuni or minimum elevation angle measurements to Polaris to give you a radius to put things into motion in orbits. If you point that out to somebody, I'm just going to keep saying the same thing until someone comes on and actually has this discussion. It's just I'm interested because it's the first time I'm enthusiastic about discussing axial rotation. Never before. It's a crappy argument, though, isn't it? It's a crappy argument because you end up doing it for hours. Hey, Arthur, by the way. A bit later in the day. Maybe that's why we've been blessed with your presence at the beginning of the show.
That's right. I just wish that every day your show was at this time, then I would be able to join from the beginning of the show.
Oh, and so
It's
do the
just
public.
past working hours.
Yeah, so do the public. Look at those 34 people watching. The numbers are immense. 35. Wow. So I'm so glad that we went forward to our... No, people don't know we're supposed to be live, so please share the show if you've not done so already. A very warm welcome to all 35 of you that are watching live. It's good to have an audience at all. Can't moan. Haven't been entirely censored out of existence. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there.
What have you been getting up to, Arthur? I know you had
closer.
Arwen on recently. I haven't had a chance to watch that either.
What?
Arthur had you on, did you not?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. How enthusiastic. Check out Arthur B. Flat. If you're not already subscribed, hopefully someone will stick a link to his channel in the live stream chat so you can go and check him out. I thoroughly enjoy listening to his dulcet tones, looking at his glorious beard.
So you watched that part? It was interesting, but it was kind of impromptu from my side. I just popped on because I thought he was going to talk about religion. And I thought,
see.
like, yes, let me do my thing. Maybe he will accept it and not get angry.
I was not gonna, but
Yeah,
you
you
made
were
me.
gonna talk about gravity, but then you talked about that, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about that.
Did you convert?
It was
Arthur?
impromptu on my part as well. Yeah.
Did Arthur
I was
convert to
not able
Satanism
to.
or what?
Convert? What?
Yes. I said it was just a joke. Forget it. Let's move on.
You're gonna need a flat or to a distance to the sun.
You're going to need a flat plane for the distance to the sun. See, I don't know about that either. Sorry to be critical of you, Matthew, but no. If you pay attention to Brian in terms of his pointing out where the false dichotomy will lie, where they'll take an angle that's conducive with their derivation of heliocentric motion and Huygens assumptions to get their scale, right, with exact values. Well, once they've got an angle that matches that, they then stack it up in false dichotomy so that you can, as a flat earther, say, well, if you do the exact same angle they've done, it comes out to 2,000 miles or whatever it is. However, everything that you're looking at, with the exception of Polaris, is moving in the sky. So it's moving in terms of how much of an angle you've got to it. Does that mean it's getting closer to the ground? does it mean that Polaris, when it quote unquote sets, is touching the ground? Because if you use that methodology that they like to set up in false dichotomy to say, oh, look, this matches how the globe model would get this angle from a flat plane. And the idea is you say, well, no, from a flat plane, the sun's 2,000 miles. And they can say, ha, 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 no, it isn't. The shadows wouldn't work with parallel light that I assume on a ball. And so it goes on. You've then got a nice false dichotomy set up. But nobody, flat Earth or globe Earth, can measure the distance to the sun. You're not going to need a flat plane for it. How are you supposed to derive height, with trig presumably, off a flat plane for stuff that's moving towards the horizon? The answer is you can't. You can't get distances to any of the celestial objects. Nobody knows how far they are. Nobody knows what they are.
Yeah, but you forgot about the Oakley map, the height of star map
Height of
that
star
you all
map.
need.
I would assert that they're all at the same height by way of behaviour, which is very non-reality in terms of everything else that we observe in our physical universe. And by universe, I mean the nature of everything we know, not the universe as in out in the black sky with Einsteinian fourth-dimensional space-time bending and black holes and spaghettification. No. I'm just talking about the known existence. That's what I'm calling the universe in this regard. Well, go on.
Oh, you mean the non-actual height? That you think that all the celestials have the same non-actual height?
You could put
Okay,
it. You could, in an Arwinian, making it sound stupid way. Yes, you could say that.
how is that in a stupid way?
Making it sound stupid in a non-specific,
apparent.
actually
It's not
specifically the
actually.
same height. If they're the same height, they've got a height. And you just, in your phraseology, as polite as it may have tried to be, has pointed out the absurdity of my notion. However, they remain consistent as you rise in elevation. In other words, if I take an angle now to whatever, let's say Polaris, and then you, Arwin, 30,000 feet above me in an aeroplane, literally above me, at my zenith, you are in the plane taking the angle at that particular moment, or in a helicopter, let's make it easier. Yeah? You're in a helicopter, you're directly above me. You can take the exact same angle as I can take. Now, if the thing was physical and had a height, that wouldn't be possible. Now, don't ask me why they behave like that. It is the majesty of the stars. I don't know why they do that, but it is a fact. As you raise in elevation, they do not change. So they're still above whatever position they're above with the same angle with reference to the ground. Hence, you can use a bubble sextant and still get the same angle, still use the same almanac. It doesn't have to be altered. The only thing that you ever have to alter is your dip if you're establishing horizontal with the horizon, because you're above the water when you do that with a Mariner's sextant. So with the exception of dip correction, all you're ever doing is drawing out one line from your eye, or correcting for it if you're using the horizon, or lining it up with a bubble if you're using a bubble sextant. Once you've established horizontal, you measure your angle to the star. That's it. That is the only step. Does it matter that you're at 30,000 feet? No. You can just use a bubble sextant, and then you don't have to do dip correction. But you're still referencing that angle, same as the angle on the ground, to the horizontal eye line you've established with your bubble. Well, that means the angle doesn't change.
Yeah.
Isn't that majestic?
Because I believe personally that it's, whatever about the choice of words, I feel that the celestials are like a hologram that at a continuous apparent distance is as a sphere around you, and it literally moves with you. In that sense, it's like the stars and the celestials, including the sun, actually only exists within the observer, like within your eyes. You only see it. It doesn't actually share a position with anybody. It's unique. The specific spectacle of what you get to see is perfectly unique and perfectly angular consistent in relation to the observer.
Sure. And parallel with the ground at all
really
times. That's the point.
Bizarre and unique.
Sure, but parallel with the ground. So you can just hear the anti-flat earthers cry, oh, that's because they're so far away. No, they're always parallel with the ground. The angle to a flat plane remains the same. Or parallel to that flat plane if you're drawing out eye lines with bubble sextants.
Yeah, that's right. And if you move in a straight line, you will see the stars rotate, even though you're moving in a dead reckoning straight line, right? You're not moving in a curve over the Earth to see that happen. You move in a straight line to see the rotations happen. But if you go straight up, then there's no rotations at all. Rotations only happen horizontally. When you move straight up, there's no rotation.
Shout out to Godzilla. And I haven't loaded my my chat. Let's just bring it up on the other screen unless Alwyn can be Johnny on the spot and
Yeah, I can read it.
please.
He says, if you can read this, then your PC is working again.
Well, it is working again, but I haven't actually loaded the stream on my monitor that I can read at this distance. So let's just do that now. If you can read this, your PC is working again. Maybe. It could crash at any moment for all I know. But it seems okay, right? How long have we been live? It only tells me how long I've been connected to YouTube as opposed to how long I've actually been live. It doesn't give me that number if I leave the computer connected for a while like I told you I was doing. I did a dummy run where I connected... Go on.
26 minutes, it says.
Oh, that's not bad. So yeah, at least half an hour. Even if it does crash, I'd feel like that was a success. Like, I've got a show out today. I'm happy. I've done my YouTubing. That makes me very happy, Godzilla. So I'm going to call it a success, even if it does crash. Happy days. 45 people watching. Please share the show if you've not done so already. Really good to have you here. We'll rattle through a few more housekeeping questions. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
That
Not yet.
depends on what it is. People still think that Newtonian gravity is a thing, though.
They've been
They're
taught
not letting
it.
go.
They were taught it at school, so can you blame them?
Nope. I held on to it a long time, even. Just thinking like, yeah, the mechanism works great. It can work on a flat plane. Remember that? No, Newtonian gravity can work on a flat plane. Good old days.
Nine Great Danes says, Nathan, pull up the eclipse map. It has the angles. You could see Venus during the eclipse because it was in front of the sun. Yeah, I don't know about in front of. Occulting, I can just about tolerate. Fine. But how could it be lit up bright if in front of the sun? Oh, right, I see. You're qualifying it by using in front by asking it in a heliocentric context, which is to say, if a star's in front of the sun, then how could it be lit up? How could you see it? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, but it's because it's very gaseous and hot, and there's a lot of miraging going, and that's why it's so shiny.
Oh, if you came
Right.
for presuppositions, Nine Great Danes, then you absolutely got them out of Arwen just then. You definitely got your money's worth.
Yeah, if you need a heliocentric explanation, I'm your guy. Like interactively in the moment.
We all are. We are heliocentric experts. There's very little of the model that we don't understand, and our counterparts, the ones who oppose us, do so by way of fallacy and personal attacks, not through education and understanding of their model and how it works, because it doesn't work. And to understand how and why it doesn't work, we have to be experts in that model. So as much as I'm not trying to decry what you've just said, Arwin, absolutely, if you want a heliocentric explanation or moreover an argument about it, you're your man, or the man, or woman, depending on how you're identifying yourself.
No.
The scientific evidence of gravity?
Well, you could think of it as being scientific, but it isn't. It's mathematical. It makes no sense, and Newtonian gravity is based on a principle that doesn't account for a gas behavior at all, and it was never, was conceded to by Newton as being non-viable hypotheses. So, yeah, we got nothing. I mean, you'd think there'd be a proper theory of gravity, but there actually isn't. It's crazy that such a rumor has been perpetuated for such a long time and that people still believe in it.
The theory comes after the scientific evidence, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, the question is like a category error in the question itself. Can you take a math problem and validate it scientifically? No.
It depends. If everybody, without exception, adhered to the Einsteinian notion of pseudo-geometry, then your objection would be correct. However, because we are all taught up until high school level that gravity is a force, it means that you could have a natural phenomena to observe. Furthermore, they assert that gravity is science, and therefore we ask for evidence of science because they assert they've got it. And, as I say, can, in the case of Newtonian, now 108-year out of date force of gravity, have a naturally occurring phenomena ascribed to it. Now, even if you're a actual follower of the current rhetoric of heliocentrism with regards to gravity, that would be to say Einsteinian pseudo-Riemannian force space-time bending as a result of the uneven distribution of mass in pseudo-geometry, then you would appreciate that gravity is not a force. But like we were discussing, I don't know if it's in the pre-show or at the beginning of the live show, the notion that once you explain to somebody that their globe belief, reification, has come from a flat measurement, can it be the case that when you explain that their pseudo-geometry bent space-time isn't giving rise to any force by admission of a dozen or more different heliocentric high priests? Well, no. What they will do is brace against it and tell you that the force of gravity creates a force of gravity, or gravity creates a force, which it doesn't.
That's right. The space-time bending manifests, emerges the force, is what what Craig basically started that trend as an anti-flat earther. Very admirable. I loved it as Baldwin. But yeah, there's not been they're not really settled about how they see it though.
Well, it's a
Everybody
stupid
still
saying.
has their own different answer, and none of them they're not synchronizing with
Well,
this.
they can insert it, can't they? So it's like saying the force of green gives rise to the green grass. If it wasn't for the force of green, you wouldn't have the green grass. So obviously there's a force of green. There's the green grass, right? So obviously there's a
It's the
force.
other way around, though. It's a non-force that creates a force. So there's something mysterious that can be mathematical, the bending of space-time, whatever that is, or however we would
Not quite right either.
notice that. And
Hold on,
that
there's one more
causes
aspect you
the
missed.
force somehow.
You missed one aspect. It's a non-force.
For geometry, that isn't the force somehow. But I mean, I don't know what is anything within the pseudo geometry, right? It's not real. It's not even pretending to be real. It's just mathematics.
Correct.
But that somehow manifests the force. It's like density disequilibrium with its surrounding creates a force.
Yeah,
Relative density disequilibrium force. Well, they think that it's not the disequilibrium with the surroundings, it's the bending of space-time that basically manifests that force.
So
that's
uneven distribution of mass,
way too much.
The uneven distribution of mass causes the invented dimension of space-time to bend. Now this pseudo non-force in Einsteinian pseudo-geometry, according to the anti-flat earthers, a non-force in a pseudo-geometry, that's a mathematical description of something that does not create any forces, even in the description in the mathematics, gives rise to a physical force in reality. That's what they're saying.
Yes.
But no.
So, bending of space-time doesn't actually cause any forces, but you can think of it as causing a force. And that's what they're doing.
But you can't. Because it doesn't.
Yeah, but they can think of it as such.
Okay. If I'm going to think about bent 4D space-time giving rise to a force, I need to see bent 4D space-time. Can I see bent conceptual pseudo-force space-time?
Not literally, but you can think of it being there and creating that force.
So a non-dimension that we cannot see, that was literally invented by Einstein and labeled pseudo by him in its mathematical description, geometric in nature, can, even though I can't see it, it can't be felt, and it can only be described in the mathematics invented by a man, give rise to a force. No, it can't.
Well, it's just like dark matter, right? If the dark matter weren't there, then all the entire universe would like blow up or something. Something terrible would happen. It would be ripped apart from the start. So it's there. You can't see it. They don't even claim that you can see it. But if it weren't there, then everything, it could never have resulted in the globe universe that we got now.
No, the globe universe isn't what we've got in physical reality, though. The description of the hole in the mathematics that leads to dark matter is a band-aid for a failure in something that's supposed to describe something. That's maths. Maths is just used to describe. So there's a failure in the description, and as a consequence of the failure in the description, you've got dark matter. That has no bearing on reality whatsoever. None.
No, it's a hole in reality, and it's got to be filled with that dark matter that's unlike anything else.
I just said.
Or reality will
Stop. No, as I just said. No, it's not a hole in reality. To assert that would be to say that you've taken the hole in the description in the pseudo-geometry and then said that the band-aid is what we must have in reality, because the failed mathematical description needs something to make it work to describe reality. Therefore, we have dark matter. No.
Well, it sounds, even as you say, it sounds very plausible. It's like very acceptable. The way you said it was perfect. It's very acceptable.
I'm describing why we shouldn't accept it. That would be to say that it's a convention in a language. That's pseudo force space in maths. Yeah, those two things, me describing anything ever in mathematics, will never, ever alter our physical reality. No amount of describing stuff can do that, Arwin. And if you say, I'm not done. I'm not done. And if you say, in my description, there's a failure. But because there's a failure, I've added this extra bit to the description. Therefore, that is our reality works. No, that's not me doing a good job of explaining why it would work. Far from it. Au contraire.
Right, but I mean, if there wasn't such a thing as time, there wouldn't be such a thing as entropy. So without pseudo-Riemannian force space, you wouldn't have entropy.
What an outrage. Number one, we don't know the cause of entropy. Number two, it certainly isn't pseudo-geometry from Einstein causing the arrow of time. No. He's got a space-time dimension that doesn't make Einstein's pseudo-geometry entropy.
Yeah, but this time, that's the whole thing that makes the pseudo-geometry is the time. So if you're just saying, oh, well, time is not an influence on anything, anything real, well, how about entropy?
Now
time
you're saying,
is definitely influencing things.
No, now you're saying one convention can influence another convention. No, time is just a convention. It's another way we utilize language and sometimes mathematics to describe the passage of our existence in our known universe. That's what we call time. But it's a convention. Now, when you talk about, as I just did, and you took off the beginning part in your answer, the arrow of time, a turn of phrase, Arwin, entropy, that's not time.
Yeah, but without time, there wouldn't be entropy, wouldn't there?
It's a way of... entropy itself is just a description, but it's a description of something that occurs always. In the case of the second law of thermodynamics, you're talking about dispersion, osmosis, entropy, decay. You could call it, slightly less accurate. But those processes, we specifically focus on expansion of gas, dispersion, into areas of volume. But that process can be described on a graph with time. But does that mean that how things disperse into areas of volume is dictated by the concept, the convention that we have ascribed and labelled as time? Definitely not.
No. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's a component of entropy. If there was no passage of time, there wouldn't be any entropic effects.
Keep using these
Wouldn't
words.
exist.
Component. No. Component makes it sound like something physical, like it's an aspect of the physical reality. No. The component that is time in entropy is merely part of the description we use to describe an event that occurs always. That doesn't make it part of the physical reality. It is merely the convention used to describe the physical reality. What you're doing is taking aspects of the description, in this case one axis, time, and saying, well, that's directly causally linked to the thing it's describing. No, it isn't. That's not how natural laws, and they're just descriptions, work. They just describe what you can observe to happen always. That's all they do. They have no causal influence. The descriptions and axes on the graph don't influence how the arrow of time or Einstein's pseudo-geometry influence the world, because they don't. They are conventions and descriptions only.
Yeah, but that's because the laws of nature don't take into account pseudo-geometry.
Now you reifying the bloody laws of nature, like they're going to be pondering over something. They're just how stuff happens. Anyway, let's just read out the super chat from Tony. Shout out to Tony Whitcomb. Really appreciate the support. Thank you very much indeed. I hear FTFE has a bucket list with going to space added. So my guess is going to live eternally. Why? Because he'll never get to space? Having something on your bucket list and never being able to do it doesn't make you live forever. But thank you for the super chat.
That's more like a prayer to God list.
Okay, if woman beater and convicted violent criminal fight the flat earth, Craig McNeil wants to believe that he's going to space, then that's his bag. You know, I'm doubtful that they would let convicted violent criminals to go to space if it was real, but it isn't.
He's not going anywhere. Maybe in his dreams for a little bit.
They're going to get there. What are you going to do? Put yourself into an orbital motion to escape the gas that's not expanding into the vacuum by way of a derivation in the mathematics. What's that you say? The telemetry data has gone missing. I wonder why. Yeah, because you'll show in those maths, when you calculate how much distance by way of an assumption from Huygens and Kepler's orbital motions, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with those elliptical motions? You're going to derive measurements to get to them from a flat plane. Radial value. You need that to superimpose it onto Venus. You need that to infer that you've got elliptical orbits. You need that to infer that you've got heliocentric motion around the sun in the first instance. You'll need R. Now, don't get me wrong, we've said this before, but now it has so much more weight because in saying you're going to need R for that, where'd you get it? Well, you get it from a flat plane.
You totally ruined that imagination. You said like, oh, what are you going to do when you go to space? I was literally imagining, like, I want to go into like a Neil deGrasse Tyson ship, like on the History Channel, and just fly around and zoom out of the galaxies. And then you were ruining with all this garbage math and like needing flat planes and all that nonsense. Like, you're terrible at imagining what you would do in space.
Here's a challenge for Craig. Give us the trajectory information for your trip to space that you imagine that one day you'll take as a convicted criminal. Not going to happen. Nevertheless, do it, but show all of the calculations, including the R derivation. That is to say that when R appears in the maths for orbital motion, you show where it came from, how that has been measured. And I'll show him how it starts with a flat plane in order to derive his orbital motion that he fantasizes about being in. What, after measuring the R value from a flat plane, taking it off the celestial sphere that's off a flat plane, and giving you your heliocentric motion to put you in a sky vacuum? Absolutely not. You'll need a flat Earth for that, convicted criminal and violent woman beater, Craig McNeil. You'll definitely need a flat Earth for that.
I don't know, man. I've seen pretty convincing space simulator games and all that. Looks pretty real.
Yeah, you can do amazing things with reification. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, I thought that you were going to remind me how that space simulator is basically created in a virtual box.
I don't have to argue about how simulations are created. In reality,
With a flat plane.
in reality, if you're going to derive heliocentric motion, you're going to do something in physical reality to get there. And what you will do is measure a flat plane, Arwin. That's what you'll do in physical reality. Now, the abstract reification and fantasy that people like convicted violent criminal woman beater Craig McNeil indulge in is nothing more than what I just described. That's reification taken from physically occurring flat plane measurements. No globe measurements. They're derived from flat planes. So just let me know how your fantasy pads out when you know that the orbital motion came from a flat plane measurement in the first place. You'll struggle to reify your orbital motion at that point because you'll know that it's merely a concept to predict where the stars will be. Used by the church to predict when Easter would be. And those elliptical motions that you think that you can fly around in yourself are nothing more than I just described. Reification. Oh, hello, Adam.
Hey, Adam.
Afternoon, guys. Just seeing you live.
Yeah, there's been one little Brucey bonus. So my DisplayPort cable had to go up through the bottom of the PC where it takes all the vent. It's like a tube, a metal tube. So it vents upwards, right? It's passive. And the extension cable that came out the graphics card that's bolted inside as opposed to the outside of the case, like the outside fins, you can get all the connections in. Mine isn't like that. It's got extension leads that go to the outside of the case because it's all kept within. Fine. Other than the DisplayPort cable on the old graphics card did not work unless you plugged it directly in. Now, I just by habit, when I got the new graphics card, did exactly that. Plugged it straight into the graphics card. Well, while I was waiting for my Wi-Fi guy to come out and change my router, which has now been done, I just thought I'll just wire it up because Craig had just managed to get it working in situ just to make sure it all fires up, no problem. And I thought, I'm not going to go to the effort. I'll just plug it into the DisplayPort on the back. Maybe it'll work. You never know. I hadn't actually tested it. And it did. So that means that there's now only one cable that I have to physically dismantle the PC to take out if I ever need to move it again, as opposed to two. But there we go. That's happy days, isn't it, Adam?
Well, it certainly sounds happy for you. Although I was looking at it thinking, oh God, what's gone wrong? When I was checking.
What had gone wrong was AI Suite flashed up an error, and I went to Craig, look, this error keeps flashing up. I can't find file at 00 or something like that. I sent him a photo, and he's like, delete AI Suite and reinstall it. So I'm like, okay. So I delete AI Suite, and it asks me to restart. So I did, and it restarted, and everything worked perfectly. So I'm like, oh, why bother reinstalling it? I never use it. What's the point? So I left it. Now, fast forward through a lot of headaches and a lot of black screens and blue screens and it generally not working and loading to a completely different operating system, Windows 10, from a completely different hard drive. Because let's not just get into that. Let's fast forward to me just before this show started reinstalling AI Suite because after doing a bit of research, it fundamentally controls voltages. So like, oh right.
Oh my God.
No wonder it's crashing. So yeah, AI Suite went back on. Now everything is working normally. So my bad. I thought it had all moved to Armory Crate. So there's a new piece of Asus software called Armory Crate, which has been around for years, to be fair to it. I thought it just superseded AI Suite. You're like, well, what do you need it for? Is it just there to monitor like the frequencies and RAM speeds and voltages? No, it ain't monitoring stuff. It's controlling it. You're like, oh fuck. Excuse my language. But yeah, so my computer tech guy, because it when removing it, it changed all sorts of different things. Also changed the boot priority, right? So it starts booting Windows 10, my old operating system, from my old drive that was in the old computer. Now, it happens to still have the operating system on it for an emergency. I've left it on intentionally. But I use that drive to put these shows on. When I'm live, they record to that drive. In other words, it's not the boot drive. But removing AI Suite, I don't think you need drive 1 to be your boot drive. I think drive 4 should be your boot drive. So I loaded, and everything, my life had disappeared. Like everything had gone. You're like, what's going on? And I just hadn't recognised it had loaded a completely different operating system off a completely different drive. So while Craig's faffing with it, he's trying to fix AI Suite and completely uninstall it correctly because I'd just gone to add or remove programs. He's uninstalling it correctly with a tool that scrubs it, right? But he's doing that on Windows 10. So when we're like, oh, the penny dropped. Why are we in Windows 10? Oh, right, it's not seeing the drive. So we put the other drive, load it up. It works and fires up. I'm like, oh, problem solved. So I then pack it up and bring it home, plug it in, immediate blue screens. Because like I say, it's had all the fixes done, but to the wrong operating system on the other drive because we did it all before we figured that out. So then once it's got fired up, I'm like, well, that's fixed now because obviously it should just work as it was. But we haven't actually done any work on AI Suite. So long story short, the last thing before running this show was put AI Suite back on. And now, lo and behold, I know my hardware's correct and stable, but not if there's a fundamental operating procedure not part of the process. So there we go. That's all. That's that then. And it seems to be working fine, right? We've been live for almost an hour, haven't we? Don't know how long we've been live. Long enough to know that it's not going to immediately crash after 5 seconds.
51 minutes.
51 minutes. That's long enough to tell me, yeah, it's fine. It's hopefully just going to run on for 5 years. I've said that so many times. This could be all just run for 5 years now. I won't ever mention it again. Next day. Yeah, I've had another problem. Yeah, Bev the cheeky sod left a message on my desperate cry to let my audience know why there probably wouldn't be a live show. He's like, oh, I've got a computer guy. Like, seem genuine. Look, if you need help. A bit like you offered, Adam. Very similar words.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, all right, fair enough. Actually, it's all sorted now. I happened to be back when I saw that message on one of the videos. And I just literally finished making another video saying, oh, it's all back now. Just waiting for the Wi-Fi guy, and he'll change my router out for a newer one. The old one's worn out. That was my latest video. And then I do a self-check. So I do on YouTube, Nathan Oakley search, and then search by day. So in other words, I see if somebody's put up a video about me today. And what do you know? Bev's making a live stream at 2 p.m, my usual live time, saying Nathan needs help with his computer. And then in his thumbnail, he's got suck my balls and things like that. You're like, oh, well, I bet that's going to be a friendly, encouraging live stream about what best to do if you accidentally remove a fundamental processing part of your AI technology. I'm sure Bev's going to be covering that in great detail.
Nothing like living in somebody's head rent-free.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I thought when I saw it. I was like, all right, why am I on your mind, Bev? what gives? But there we go. Such is life. I'm just happy that we've got a live stream today. It's nice to actually be doing the do. I like doing the do. This is what I do, and I like doing it. I'm sure you're the same, Adam. When you're at work, you're like, yeah, man, this is what I like doing.
Yes, yeah. It's a way of... I don't like being with people and chatting with people, yeah. Then I moan because I'm too tired, but actually, when you're doing it, it's thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a couple of jobs that I've held that I've thoroughly enjoyed. Most of them not, but a couple of them. When I was a rep, jet setting and traveling all over the country, I enjoyed that. It was utterly exhausting, but it was really enjoyable for obvious reasons. You know, seeing all parts of the world and meeting with rich people and doing business. Very good stuff. However, I wanted to do this more than that, and I enjoy this more than that. But this is even more work than that. I didn't think it was possible. Like when I was putting in 100-hour weeks, you're like, nobody does more work than me. This is just silly. How can anybody be working more than this? Then you do work for yourself. You know what hard work is then? When you're working for yourself, and like, it's, if you have a day off, it hurts. You know what I mean? You really know about it. If you're like you, Adam, if you're running your own business, you can't have a day off. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it doesn't happen, does it? It's not so much the physical work sometimes. When it's your own, you never have a mental day off. That's the bigger difference. Even when you're on holiday,
yeah.
You know, if you're not even physically there, it's still because everything is down to you, all the responsibility. But that's part of the pleasure as well. So I shouldn't moan.
I shouldn't moan. It's just been, I felt like less guilt-ridden when I made the video about the computer going wrong. whichever one it was, the last maybe 3 ago. I felt a bit less guilty about saying, look, I appreciate that somebody has dipped into their pocket to a massive extent to buy me this computer, and it's lovely, and it's high spec, and it's nice, and he's even upgraded it to solve one of the problems. Then he's upgraded it again to solve another one of its problems. Like, my God, this man's thrown so much money at this computer. Just be grateful. However, 13 months to get the thing to physically work, 12 months to get the hardware stable. Nothing to do with him, absolutely nothing to do with him or the manufacturer of the case or necessarily the manufacturer of the electronics. It's just in combination, they didn't want to work. And it's just taken me to learn all of those parts, learn all of the new technologies, new RAM, how does that work, new motherboards, how do they work, new chipset, how does that work, new CPU architecture, how does that work, graphics card less so, but it was overheating the entire computer, so that was a massive problem. You know, I had to learn all that for 12 months. But today, it was like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm sure I said to Neil, I've got the hardware stable now, and don't worry about it, this computer's fine now. Then I started to get, I'm going to call it firmware issues, internal computer software issues, right? Then today, I couldn't get into my YouTube account. It just would not let me in. It wouldn't let me verify it via my iPad. No matter what I did, I couldn't seem to get it to do it. It just kept on, I was logged in on Google, and I'm signing it saying, we want to double-step verify you. Click continue and go to your iPad. I'm like, okay. And then it says, go to the Google app. Okay. So you go to the Google app, and then the moment you say, okay, verify me, you click on verify. And on the iPad, you're like, oh, this is clever. It goes whirly whirl, a new screen loads. Then it goes error 404. Like, okay. It took about an hour of messing around to figure a workaround to get this stupid 2-step verification. I mean, I'm glad it's there because it means people are less likely to rob your account off you. But by the same token, it's like, but you do kind of hope that when you go into your Google app, as it tells you to, and you can tell that it's doing something because it loads a new screen, that it would just load the screen that says, yeah, verify by putting the number that you see on screen in here. I mean, eventually I got it to do that. So, like, if it's not hardware, it's firmware. If it's not firmware, it's the software. You're like, when's it going to end? You know what I mean? You could probably hear that desperation in my voice in some of those live streams where I'm pointing at it going, it's broken. I hate life. I've not had anything... In all of 8 years of however long it's been, maybe 9 years of doing Flat Earth, nothing, and I do mean nothing, has even come close to generating the stress that this computer has generated. I've debated really clued up Globers, people with PhDs. I've done it live on other people's channels while they've been muting me. I've done it all. Nothing even comes close to dealing with this stupid computer. Not even close. Nowhere near. Right? It's just never ending. So last summer, right, I just got the computer and went on holiday, and I remember sitting in that crappy caravan because we're poor. Sun holiday that cost us £1 by collecting tokens from the newspaper. I'm sitting in this caravan with my iPad, looking at core frequencies and voltages for 12th gen i9 chips and figuring out what I'll do when I get home to get this stupid computer to be stable. That was the holiday before last, right? So this year's cheap £1 Sun holiday, Sun newspaper tokens again, back in the different caravan in a different part of the UK, right? I'm sitting there with the exact same iPad, figuring out how to get RAM voltages to be stable. You're like, wasn't I doing this exact same thing 12 months ago? Here we are a month later. Finally, the bloody hardware's stable. And now it's getting stupid YouTube errors. Stupid scratch discs replacing boot drives. You're like, oh. Anyway, I've got off my chest now. I feel a lot better. Thank you for asking, Adam. Even if you didn't. Thank you.
Did I? I think I did. So, yeah. No, it's stressful, dude.
So, if anybody wants to let me know what Bev had to say, I left him his first comment in his live chat saying, yeah, my computer's back and working now. So, yeah, you're not exactly Mr. Current Affairs, are you, Bev? There we go. I'm sure he had a lovely live stream talking about a broken computer that was already back and fixed.
I see, I saw that. And I said, it does make you wonder about living in people's heads. Nathan's not live. First thing he's checked. Oh, let's make a show about it.
He could very easily.
stuff behavior,
to be
isn't
fair,
it?
he could though, couldn't he? Because I have reached the edge of my sanity now. So, you could easily point fingers and go, look, he's breaking apart the seams. Yeah, I am, yeah. Not because of flat Earth, not because of globers, because of ninth gen DDR5 that's sending me over the edge. Anyway. Right, this is going to be I don't know how long we've been live. Can someone let me know? I ran this computer live, but not live for a few minutes just to make sure it wouldn't embarrassingly fall over as soon as I did go live. Hence me being really late, even for the scheduled late show. What time? How long have we been live?
I'm looking, literally an hour, bang on the hour.
Perfect.
So before you round out, though,
go on.
I can just do a quick. Because last night we, in amongst some of the multitude of things that get discussed on QE Live, QE's asked if me and Brian will do Bad Moon Shadow on QE Live next week. So I just want to give that a shout out and a bit of pimping just to get people, because it's one of the few things we've done where we've had zero response from the ballers. Want to make sure that they know it's going off. We do the presentation. I look forward to their response. So, yeah,
okay,
that should be next Tuesday.
Let's shout it out. Actually, so Quantum Eraser YouTube channel, Tuesday of next week. So 6 days from now. If you're watching this after the fact, you'll have to check the dates underneath. But Bad Moon Shadow, you're right. It's a cracking evidence. Debunking parallel light rays, distances to suns. It even also, like a lot of things at the moment, proves how you'll need a flat plane. It's a great piece of evidence. I haven't been paying attention to it, Adam. You're my eyes and ears in this regard. You're saying nobody's even batted an eyelid. Shocking.
Nobody's even attacked it to go, oh, that's stupid. Nothing from Roofy, nothing in the comment. It was quite weird after we presented it. There was nothing, but nothing to attack it. Oh, and I know why. It's because it destroys the basic principles that Eratosthenes works based on. He makes a statement, and that's why it's a very difficult topic for them to deal with.
Interesting that they just don't cover it. I mean, when things like this happen, we should rub it right in their faces. That's the only thing, though. When you're right close to the target, you normally expect a lot of flack.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's the way. Not even Brian. Brian's not had any feedback on it. And I'm getting letters from Roofy every day because Brian's said something in the incorrect order and stuff. Do you know what I mean? He'll jump on anything, and it generally is, very minutiae. So to have a whole presentation just ignored by them is very telling.
Right. It means that they really lost grip on it, so they can't trick their way through anymore. It's just staring them in the face, so then they pretend like it doesn't exist. Makes sense.
Hey, D-Rose. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to say first, because we haven't rounded out once yet, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to my impromptu, I'm going to call it because it's late, Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, though, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!